You know that feeling, right? You're staring at a restaurant menu, or maybe you're just scrolling and scrolling through Netflix, and you just feel stuck, completely frozen. Well, you are definitely not alone. That feeling has a name, the paralysis of choice. And today, we're going to get into the science of why our brains have such a hard time making a decision.
Okay, so check this out. It all really starts with this one kind of mind-blowing number. From the second you open your eyes in the morning, your brain is just firing on all cylinders. What am I going to wear? What should I have for breakfast? Which email do I tackle first? It all adds up, and I mean, it really adds up. We're talking an estimated 35,000 choices every single day. So, that's the big question, isn't it? If we're supposedly these decision-making machines cranking out thousands of choices a day, why do so many of them feel, well, impossible? It turns out it's not just you. There's some really powerful forces going on behind the scenes.
All right, part one. Let's talk about your mental battery, because that's really the best way to think about it. Your ability to make a good, solid choice isn't some bottomless well of energy. Nope. It's more like the battery on your phone. It can, and it absolutely does, run down.
And this whole thing actually has a name. It's called decision fatigue. It's a really simple idea, actually. Just the act of making one choice after another, it literally wears you out. It makes the next decision that much harder, and the one after that, even harder. And we're not just talking about feeling a little tired here. As John Tierney put it, there is a real, actual biological price to pay. Every single choice you make, no matter how tiny, it's like it's chipping away at this limited mental resource you've got.
So, psychologists have this great model for it. They call it the strength model of self-control. The easiest way to get it is to think of your willpower like a muscle. If you work it out all day, what happens? It gets tired, right? Well, your brain's the same way. That state of total mental exhaustion, they call that ego depletion. And that feeling of just being completely spent at the end of the day, decision fatigue is one of the biggest signs you're there.
So what happens when that mental battery is flashing red? Our brains do what they're programmed to do. They look for a shortcut. They take the path of least resistance. And that can mean making a really rash, impulsive choice. Or, and I think we can all relate to this, just avoiding the choice altogether. Putting it off. Sound familiar? Okay, let's move on to part two. This one builds right on top of that idea of being tired. Because it's not just about how many decisions we have to make, it's about the crazy number of options we have for each one. That's what really starts to overwhelm us. There's a term for this too. It's called overchoice, or sometimes you'll hear it called the paradox of choice. It's so interesting because we think we want more options. More is better, right? But the research is pretty clear. Having too many choices can actually paralyze us. And even worse, it can make us less happy with whatever we finally decide on. Yeah, you can almost picture it like an upside-down U. At the beginning, having a few options is awesome. It feels like freedom, like control. But as the number of choices keeps going up and up, our satisfaction hits a peak, and then it just plummets. And, this whole overchoice thing hits us hardest under a few specific conditions. Like, say you're buying jam. If you don't really have a favorite flavor to begin with, and all the jars kind of look the same, well, that's when staring at a wall of 50 different kinds of jam becomes a huge problem instead of a fun little shopping trip. And here's the real kicker. Overchoice doesn't just make the decision harder in the moment. It actually infects the aftermath. You feel all this pressure to get it right, and then you're way more likely to feel regret later. You're left wondering, maybe one of those other 49 jams would have been better. All right, part three. Let's add another layer to this cake, anxiety. What is actually going on inside our brains when stress crashes the decision-making party? So first, let's meet the CEO of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is the sophisticated, rational, grown-up part of your brain that's in charge of all the big, important executive functions. I mean, this part of your brain does all the heavy lifting. It's planning for the future, weighing risks and rewards, understanding complex rules. Basically, it's what lets you make those calm, logical choices. It's the real adult in the room. But here's the problem. When anxiety shows up, it's like someone pulls the fire alarm in the building. Everything goes haywire, and your brain's emergency systems completely hijack the CEO's office. And this isn't just a metaphor. Neuroscientists have seen it happen. Anxiety literally short-circuits the whole system. It goes in and selectively disengages the exact neurons you need to make a careful, thought-out decision. And just like that, your ability to think clearly and make a good choice, it's weakened. And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, part 4. This is a big one.
It's a psychological trap that can lock you into a non-stop, endless loop of indecision. We're talking about perfectionism.
So here's the core mental flip that happens with perfectionism. Instead of looking at an option and asking, okay, what's good about this? The perfectionist brain immediately asks, what's wrong with this? What does it lack? The whole focus shifts from finding the best thing to just avoiding the worst thing.
And this way of thinking leads to this crazy thing called a preference cycle. Let's take laptops. You like laptop A because it has a great screen, but you like laptop B more because it has a better battery, okay? But then you see laptop C has a more powerful processor, so you like that one best. But then you compare it back to laptop A and you realize you'd rather have the great screen. You're stuck. A is better than B, which is better than C, which is better than A. It's a loop with no exit because what you define as best keeps changing based on what the thing in front of you is missing.
And really, this is the huge difference between healthy, deep thinking and that destructive spiral of overthinking. One is all about finding solutions. It gives you clarity and helps you move forward. The other, it's obsessed with finding problems, and it just leads to more stress and more confusion.
So, let's put it all together. You've got a drained mental battery, you're swimming in a sea of endless options, your anxious brain is hijacking the controls, and you're terrified of making a less than perfect choice. I mean, is it any wonder we get stuck? It really leaves you with a final thought, right? In a world with infinite choice, maybe the best decision isn't about finding the one perfect, flawless option. Maybe, just maybe, the best decision is simply making one.